Let's drop on in.
Boom.
Oh
We're
yeah,
in.
we're in. I could hear you on my end.
Banger, banger, banger. All right, let's see if the ladies and gentlemen in the chat can hear Mr. Bobby Nation
Ladies
this
and
time. Oh, here we
yeah.
here we go. Wait, I got the audio going here. Hold on, let's see if I can hear you. Ah, boom, we're live. We're good, Bobby. I can hear you.
All right, perfect. I can hear you on my end.
Awesome. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Another episode of the Gentleman's Code. I mean, I know you guys were clamoring. I know you guys were losing your minds. 5 to 10 minutes behind schedule, a little technical difficulty. I got about 32 text messages, one death threat to people asking where the hell the gentlemen are at.
Where are you guys?
Trying to have their morning coffees.
Relax, relax. We're coming. We're coming.
So, welcome to another episode. I think it's episode 6, Bobby was saying, but we
Yeah,
put episode 5. That's fine, though. We got to keep you
yeah.
guys on your
It's
toes.
fine. We could change it afterwards too. Not a big deal.
Exactly. Cool. Well, we're back, Bobby. Let's get into it. So, a couple of big things that happen, right? You know I have to start with it. Right? Just you know where
I
I'm
know
going
you're
with
gonna
this.
start with. I know you're gonna.
So, and then we're gonna get into to some money making things, but we got to talk about. I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but the debate last night. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw the beginning of it, and then like you said, I didn't watch it all because one is just way too long, and two, ABC tried to make it like their own show. So I have me and my mom have a nickname for that guy. What's his name? The moderator. He does the ABC Tonight news. He's the
Um,
bad. Well, anyway, he's the bad news bear. Anytime you put on his show, it's just bad news. Oh, hurricane, homelessness. It's always something terrible. It's never any good news. So that guy, right from the get go, I was skeptical about how that was going to go.
right, right. Yeah, bad news guy. That well, there was a couple of other names that people were giving him last night too, which I would agree with. But, maybe to do with his potential sexuality, but you could tell he was a bad news guy. But no, the reason I brought it up is because I never actually watched a debate live like that, and I didn't catch the whole thing. I was working until 10 Eastern last night, and so I popped on a little bit left on, or maybe a little bit earlier than that, and I was trying to get a feel for how they were both speaking, how they were both talking about the different topics. The first thing I noticed is that, and just from the little bit that I've watched, ABC's news anchors were clearly trying
Hmm.
to disparage Trump and what he was saying compared to Kamala. And now, here's the thing: regardless of who you're voting for or who you like or whatever it is that you believe, it doesn't matter. Just objectively, that's not a good look, right? They shouldn't have been attacking one candidate and then just letting the other one do whatever they want them to do because they're biased towards that person. You can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And people see through that. And then the second thing was from the portion that I did see Trump speak. Again, this might not have been the feel from the entire debate. I still got to watch the whole thing. I didn't feel super impressed with what he was saying, at least from what I saw. And then, of course, with
Hmm.
Kamala, the same thing. I wasn't impressed with anything she was saying either. So I'm curious to see if you watched more of it, what you thought about Trump's answers, what you thought about Kamala.
Yeah, so that's the thing about these debates and the way that they set them up. So first of all, they're in a confined space. It's just like the four of them. It was Trump, Kamala. I forget his name. I think it's David Muir,
Mm-hmm.
and then that other lady. So first of all, it's kind of like an awkward setting to begin with. You have two moderators asking questions and two candidates. There's nobody in the crowd. Back in the day, they used to do these in front of people, so the crowd would get into it. If somebody said something not true, the crowd would chime in and be like boo, or the crowd would yell and kind of tell it how it is. But when it's a confined setting like that, and you only have the moderators to fact check you and they're leaning towards one side, yeah, it's gonna look kind of bad for one candidate. And I agree with what you said. I didn't really like kind of the tactic Trump took. He took the same tactic he does in all his speeches, where it's just like kind of knocking them down and saying that they're the worst candidate ever. And I think that a lot of people were kind of expecting Kamala to go out there and just sound like a dumb buffoon. Well, in reality, she's a prosecutor and she's like a lawyer on the stand. So she's pretty, I think, good in situations like that, up on the stand where she could talk and like point her argument out. Granted, she's been fact checked later on saying things that weren't true as well, but that it goes both ways. But yeah, I'd agree with your assessment in thinking. I didn't think Trump had the best night. For some reason, his camp thought that he had the best night. I thought he had a couple slick lines at Biden, but I mean that's really not going to help him against Kamala. But in the long run, I think his strategy needs to be what they have done over the past 4 years hasn't worked. What he did over his 4 years has worked. And now we need to go back to that. And I think sometimes he gets a little too personal because people get personal with him all day, take shots at him all day. So he's just trying to defend himself to some aspect. They say he's like, Hitler, and they say all this bad stuff about him. He's a threat to democracy. So I think it gets under his skin a little bit, and then he gets agitated and he wants to go back at them. But in the long run, that's kind of what hurt him with Biden.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the thing is because there's a more effective way for them to do these sorts of debates. The problem is that, like you said, the setting's not correct. The best interviews I've ever seen and the best podcast that I've ever listened to where the candidate was able to actually articulate their points and get across their message of what they're trying to accomplish is in long format conversation, whenever people aren't just interrupting them and telling them, well, no, this is wrong, and da, 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 da. No, just letting somebody articulate their points of what their vision is for the country. You see, for example, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which is the one personally that I've come to like more in the way that he delivers his message and what it is that he's actually trying to accomplish. He was on Tucker Carlson on his YouTube show. I don't know if you watched that episode, but
yeah,
it's when you have a long format like that, or whenever they go into Joe Rogan's podcast, the same idea, and you just allow somebody to sit there and actually articulate their points, you can understand what the logic is. You can understand what is it that they're actually trying to accomplish, and that's how they need to have that. Well, it's not going to be digestible for a consumer on TV to do a debate like that, and that's the way it should be done. And it's unfortunate because you're not actually getting any real answers. Whenever I was watching the little portion that I had watched, it gave no value to me. I didn't actually learn anything about any candidate that they were actually, like, what were you actually going to do? Because somebody who's a businessman like myself, like you, Bobby, regardless of the personal individual that gets elected, it's not necessarily what's super important. What's the important thing is the policy that's actually going to affect the people and the businesses that operate within the United States. So I'm interested in the policy, but I don't ever hear any real policy getting talked about because it's a bunch of fugaz. They promise you a bunch of things just to be able to get into the office, and then whenever they get in there, you don't even know what they're going to do, right?
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
So
I think it's super important, the setting, like you said, because I think the way they asked, first of all, the questions they ask were kind of garbage. And then how they ask them in that setting, it just makes it look even worse. They want Trump to talk about January 6th. They want Trump to talk about his indictments. They didn't bring up anything really of value of what's going to happen over the next 4 years. They just want to talk about the past and what happened in the past. Well, okay, we're not in the past anymore. We're in the future. We got to look forward. So I thought ABC did a bad job of first the questions they asked. They asked Kamala, I think, a question about the economy that she just kind of skipped over, and they didn't really like reiterate the question. That was the very first question they asked when the debate started. They said, consumers say that your economy is more expensive than Trump's. How do you explain, to bring the prices down in your next, election cycle? And she went on a ramble about how she grew up poor and never ended up getting to the question. So right off the bat, she didn't answer the question. So then it kind of went to Trump, and then he went on a rampage about how everything was so cheap when he was president. So we were just talking about the past right from the get-go. So correct. I didn't like that part of it.
Correct. I agree 1,000%. Yeah, you got to give a vision. Without a vision, the people will perish. If you're not giving people a vision, something to be excited about, they're not going to be excited to go vote or to vote for some individual. You got to give people a vision in terms of what's going to happen. And I'm not getting a vision from anybody. I'm just getting back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, fight. That's why things are deteriorating the way that they're deteriorating. And one last thing I'll mention on that point before we start talking about some other things is when I listen to some of these policies too that, for example, Kamala wants to pass, which is basically giving people more money. So, for example, the home buyer, I believe it's a first-time home buyer aid she's going to give people where it's an extra $25,000 they're going to have towards a down payment or towards buying their house. And I hear these different policies where it's more about give more to the people, which as a politician makes sense because the more money that you give people, well, the more people are going to want to vote for you. Oh, wow, they're going to give me $25,000 to buy a home because homes are so expensive. This is amazing. When people don't understand the simple economics behind it, where if you continue to print more money and put more money into the hands of the consumer, what is it going to eventually do to the actual product that they're trying to buy, which in this case is a home? It's just going to naturally inflate it even more and just make who richer? The rich people richer. Because if everybody has now a $25,000 addition to their ability to buy a home, well, all that's going to do to the four homes on that block is raise the price by $25,000 because everybody's got the 25 grand now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not a money issue. It's an inflation and it's a supply issue. There's not enough supply on the market right now in real estate. Why? Well, because there's all these people who bought a home loan or who bought a home and had a loan for 2.75, 3% interest. They're not going to give up that loan just to be able to do what? Turn around, get a new loan on a new house whenever they move and actually put it at what? 8%, 7%, 6%? Fuck no, they're not going to do that. They're going to maintain the loan that they have. That's the value.
Yeah, and people that are buying two, three, $4 million homes, that's probably their dream home. They probably don't want to move out of it unless you're like a young, wealthy person that needs to travel around to make a living. You're going to live in a $3, $4 million home if you're in your late 20s, early 30s. You know, that's a good house. Like you don't need to upgrade that. I'm sure you have enough square footage and you have 10 kids. So they're not going to sell their house and get rid of the loan they have for 2, 3% and then get one for 7 or 8%. And that just doesn't, like you said, it doesn't make sense. So they're not going to sell. And we've talked about this before on here is that we got to the point where corporations with cash are buying up single family homes now. So what does that leave? The people who want to buy a house as well, it leaves them as renters for now. And that's where you see, at least where I live, I see a lot of commercial building for apartments and condominiums and things like that, just where you could fit more people inside square footage, which is nice. It's nice. I live in an apartment building. I like living in an apartment building just because of the amenities. But if you want your own place with space, in the suburbs where you can park your car in the driveway, the typical single family house, it's just getting so expensive. And it is cheaper to rent these days than it is to own a house. So that's just the route people are going.
And here's the thing too, right? You get sold this dream that you're supposed to buy a home, and that's what that's the American dream. Get a fucking 30, 40-year mortgage and spend your entire life paying off that mortgage just so you can have a house by the time that you retire that's maybe worth, $1, $2, $3, $4 million. Which, hey, the asset itself being an appreciating asset makes sense. The problem is whenever you get a 30, 40-year mortgage on it, it becomes now the mortgage itself is a liability. It's a cost. It's an expense. And so what happens is people fall into this trap of, well, let me buy this home that I clearly can't afford, get this loan from the bank that's going to keep me entrenched in my job for the next 30, 40 years. So I have to work like a good slave. And then by the time I actually pay off that house, what do I have to show for it? Okay, I have the house, but for me to actually have the money liquid, I'm going to have to sell the house. So what, I just worked my whole life to be able to have to sell the house just so I can retire, right? It doesn't make any sense. But as people who are trying to make money, as the people inside the Taylor's Code are doing, right, where we're trying to teach people how to actually develop, number one, the ability to make money, and number two, the ability to maintain wealth. You have to understand what these big corporations are doing. Like you're saying, they're buying up all these single family homes with what? Cash. Money, cash. No mortgage attached to it, no payment. No, they buy it cash. This is what you have to do to be able to combat inflation, because inflation is inevitable. It's always going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. It's going to continue to get out of control as the government continues to print, and spend more money. I mean, the number one expense for the government right now is literally their interest payments on the government deficit. Well, how do they make interest payments on the government spending the government deficit? They print more money, right? They print their own money to pay their own debts. So inflation is going to continue to happen. How do you combat that as an individual? You have to buy assets that are going to appreciate, okay? So if you can buy a home and you can buy it cash or for mostly cash and put a large chunk of that down, sure, that makes sense. Do that. If you can't do that, don't force yourself to get into this 30, 40-year mortgage just so you can say, I have a house. Oh, look, I have a wife. And look, baby, we just bought a house. Listen, if it's a bad financial decision, don't do it. What you should do, or at least what I would recommend, what me and Bobby do is, okay, what are the other types of assets you can buy? You can buy crypto. You can buy stocks. You can buy gold. You can buy silver. You can buy things that are going to appreciate. Why? Well, because inflation's going up, so the price of these things are going to go up. So at least you don't lose your money due to the inflation. It'll grow with the inflation, right?
Yeah. In terms of a house too, you got to think of how much appreciation that's actually going to accrue, even over a 30-year mortgage. I mean, it's not very often that you're going to get the 2008 financial crash. So you're not going to either gain that much money or lose that much money anymore. Housing has kind of become a stagnant investment. I think it's gradually increasing, but like you said, they're not making any more housing at a, well, at least at a rate that, it's going to deflate housing. Because if they just built houses every day, a new house on one street every day, well, obviously those houses are going to kind of decrease in value. But that's not the case because there's not a lot. So houses have been steadily on the incline since 2008 because there's just not enough to meet the population demand that we have. So it's, if you want to, my theory and my strategy is to rent where I live until I do find that dream house, until I'm financially where I want to be to buy that. Like you said, just cash, at least 50% of the house, put it in cash. That way your mortgage is super small. It doesn't even bother you if you got to go out of the country for a couple months. Your mortgage isn't financially stressing you that you still can't be free and travel. It should just be a couple thousand a month. You pay off your mortgage over that year.
Exactly.
But it's tough for people. Even my parents who bought their house actually in 2008 during the crash, it was a good investment at the time, and it still is. It's just, it's becoming so far away. My parents probably have like a 1 or 2% interest rate, which is great for them. My dad's like, well, what if we want to move one day? I'm like, you got to keep that house just because of the interest rate you're locked into. It's a no brainer to sell that house.
Hmm. People will buy the loan itself too. This is what wholesale real estate guys will do.
Hmm.
We have a gentleman inside the Taylor's Code who actually mentors on wholesale real estate. So they're cashing checks, $15,000, $20,000 a deal, etc. And so one of the things he talks about that he teaches is that interest rate on their loan is actually where the value is at. People will literally just buy the mortgage off of them just so they can have that interest rate on that home, and they'll sell that because that's where the value is at. It's not the actual house itself. I mean, yeah, the house has value, of course, and you can go buy a house anywhere in the United States, but it's the mortgage that you can get at that rate. That's not possible right now. You can't get a mortgage right now for 1 to 2% interest. So that's what investors will go and buy from your parents. So yeah, so that, and the point about being able to move around as well is important, especially as a young entrepreneur, somebody who's trying to make money and be versatile. You can't anchor yourself into one place for your entire life. Okay. When you get a mortgage like that and you live in a house, if you don't have the ability to either have a second home or move around or travel, etc., all you're doing is you're anchoring yourself to a place and not giving yourself the ability to be able to move around. So that's another reason why I've rented up until this point, is because there's no reason for me to actually buy a stationary property unless it's going to be an investment property, unless it's going to be multiple doors for me generating a passive income every single month. That's fine. That's different. But I'm not going to buy a house
Yeah.
right now. Why? Because I might be in Mexico next year. I might move to Europe next year. I might be in
Yeah.
Indonesia. Who knows? But I'm going to be moving around. Why? Because there's business opportunities. There's places to go. And the US, me, myself personally, I'm not convinced I want to be in the US in the next 10 to 15 years anyways. I'm actually convinced that I'm not going to be in the US. Why? Well, because it's, in my opinion, a declining state. So why would I settle in a country and raise a family in a country where long term I believe it's going to be worse off than it is right now? Well, I don't want to be on a losing team. I don't want to be in a declining situation. So I'm not going to anchor myself to a place I don't see myself being in long term, right? And that's the freedom that renting gives you. Sure, you're not building
Yeah.
towards an asset right now, but the freedom that you have to be able to move and have a 1 year lease and then get out of it and go somewhere else is more valuable as a young person, because you
For
want to give
sure.
yourself that opportunity.
Even in terms of just like the daily upkeep, like if something happens, we had our sink leaking in the kitchen, and if you're gonna fix that in your own house, that might cost you. You have to go to Home Depot, you got to buy parts, you got to buy nuts and bolts. But if you just rent, you just call the landlord like, "Hey, shit's broken, come and fix it." They come and they fix it. It's just stress off your back. You don't got to worry about parts breaking or water heaters going, air conditioning not working. It's relatively cheaper in that aspect for upkeep.
Right. And since we're on the topic of assets, right? Here's another thing that people will ask me all the time. This is a classic question that gets asked. Oh, should I? So I have some money. Okay, made a few dollars. I want to start to buy things. I want to start to upgrade a little bit. Does it make sense to buy a car? Right? This is a big topic that people always ask me about. Well, why would you buy that car? It's a depreciating asset. Da, 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 da. They're not thinking about it the way that you want to think about it. A car, I believe a car is completely
You
different
see the
than a
rims
house.
on this bitch?
Yeah,
You see the chrome on the rims?
yeah, baby.
What
You
do you
didn't see
mean?
that? I mean, bro, just the. So the point is yes, you should buy a nice car. Okay, here's why I believe that. The money I've made from having an AMG GT has surpassed any money that I've actually put into the car. And well, how could you say that? You paid, $100,000 for a car and then it's depreciating, da da da. Well, first of all, if you buy the car used, 1 year or 2 years used, it's still pretty much brand new. Okay, low mileage,
Yeah,
everything.
it's almost 30% off too.
Exactly. Right? So that GT Benz, if I would have bought that brand new, built it from the factory, it would have been about $130,000. Okay, I got it for a little bit less than 100,000, and it was only a
Yeah.
year. I believe at the time I bought it was about a year or two old. So pretty much still brand new. The guy who drove it put what 10, 15,000 miles on it. My point is that's something I agree you should buy, even though it's a depreciating asset. A nice car is worthwhile to have because the money that I made from that car has completely surpassed what I put into the car in the sense that the recruiting I was able to do for it for my insurance business. Why? Well, because nobody wants to work with somebody who makes less money than them. If you expect to be able to attract people into your business or into your sales organization, you have to show them that you're obviously doing better than them. If they don't know that you're doing better than them, why would they follow you? And that's fair, right? It's the law of the lid. How are you ever going to teach somebody to make $10,000 a month if you've never made it yourself? So the car, that is worthwhile because the self-image, the connections you'll start to make just by having the car that I have. Every single time I go out, almost religiously, oh my god, that car is so nice. Oh wow, that's a beautiful car. Da, da, da. You go to Cars and Coffee, you pull up in that car. Now you have some respect. Now you got some credit. People are going to come up to you and ask you what you do. Oh, what do I do? Well, I'm actually in the insurance industry. I have an agency. You looking for work? Oh well, yeah, I was actually looking for a new opportunity. Boom, 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 boom. Easy. People who have nicer cars, people who are doing well and are successful, instantly respect you as well. Why? Well, because they understand that, well, he has to be doing something right to be able to afford something like that. So
Yep.
it's absolutely worthwhile. And honeys love it. Honeys love
Yeah.
it.
And it's fun. I mean, it's a hobby. And I had this discussion with one of the gentlemen in our group was gasoline powered cars are going to be collector's items in 20, 30 years. Think about your AMG Benz in 2045. It's going to look sick. It's going to be a collector's item. It's going to be electric cars, and then you see this white AMG Mercedes fly down the street. You're going to be like, "What the hell is that thing?" And it's seriously, they're going to be collector's items. They're going to be novelty because they're going to stop making them eventually. And you already see this with the Audi R8, one of my favorite cars. It's not in production anymore. So when you see one, you're like, oh wow, well, like they're not going to make those anymore. So it's fascinating to see how gasoline powered cars are going to become collector's items, in my opinion.
And it's already happening that way with naturally aspirated engines. So for example, Ferrari, because I was gonna buy I'm between an 812 Superfast and a Huracan Evo. So I'm probably gonna buy the Huracan Evo by the end of this year. But when I was doing my deep dive into Ferraris and trying to see what model I wanted, what type of car I wanted, etc., you saw how, or you're seeing how the 458 Ferrari, which was the last naturally aspirated V8 engine, is starting to appreciate and is going to start appreciating value because it was the last one they ever made. They don't make any more naturally aspirated V8s. So that 458 model is now the pinnacle of the Ferrari for the V8 because arguably the best sounding car ever. I mean, it's naturally aspirated. This thing sounds like a fucking, engine whenever you hear it.
It's
Hear it
wide
cranking.
open. Yeah. So much air flowing through that thing.
It's ridiculous. But that 458 is becoming a collector's item because of that. So the 488, which is the next V8 model, was a twin turbo V8, and then obviously the F8 Tributo, which is the one that they currently have in production, is twin turbo V8. Now, for the 812 Superfast, which is the V12 model that they're on right now, That's still naturally aspirated, but as soon as they stop making that V12 naturally aspirated, whatever that last model is, again, boom, collector's item. Why? Because it's the last naturally aspirated engine. It sounds. I test drove the 812 Superfast, and at the dealership where I bought the GT, absolutely insane, dude. I think I might have told you this, but I almost killed myself in that car.
Yeah,
Me and
told me this.
the sales rep. So it was the first time I ever drove an 812, and going from a GT to an 812 Superfast is a pretty big fucking jump. Okay, which I didn't realize how big of a jump it would be in terms of power, but it was ridiculous. So we took it out, and we were literally just doing laps around the facility. It was just we didn't go on the highway, we didn't go no back roads, etc. It was just literally one lap around. Dude, I came around the second to last corner, 20%, 30% power on the pedal. I start fishtailing. Dude, we go fucking sideways on the streets. I look at the sales dude. He looks at me. He said, "Yeah, we gotta wrap this up." And that's actually why they don't let people take out the. He said they used to let them take a longer route whenever they took out the cars. But just a couple months prior to what I did with the 812, he said a guy wrapped a 488 around a tree, totaled it, wrapped it around a tree on the test drive. But that's how powerful.
Is he liable for that?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know how that works, if he had to pay for it or what. But the dude fucking totaled the 488 Ferrari.
Oh my god.
Yeah, insane.
On a test drive.
Yeah, on a test
Is
drive.
your Benz all-wheel drive?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is all-wheel drive. Yeah. So it's
So that's probably the difference. A lot of the power going to 2 wheels instead of 4.
exactly. It was actually insane. I've never felt a car move like that before, and that's why you see these videos of people crashing out on the highway and spinning out and doing all this shit. Is because you get idiots like me who are buying these supercars and they don't know what the hell's going on. Because I'm not
New money.
Yeah, it's that new money. So you see new money crashing out on the highway. But yeah, you don't understand the difference in power. It's absolutely fucking insane. So anyways, the point is buying a car like that is huge. And it's so funny because everybody just knows what it is as a status symbol. A girl, she doesn't know what model it is. She doesn't even understand the brand. She doesn't know what the fuck's going on. She just knows it's nice. But you put a girl into a nice car like that, she looks at you completely different. Your energy's different. Your aura's different. I've never taken a girl on a date in that GT and not, had a good experience, we'll say. So it always works out in my favor. Why? Well, because it's an amplifier of who you are as an individual. Now they look at you like, oh my God, not only is he intelligent, he speaks well, he's very nice, he's a gentleman, he got me flowers, he took me to dinner, but he's also got money. Ooh, shit. You're cruising. That's what I'm saying. So it's worthwhile. It is worthwhile. You got to have something that you're proud of pulling up in. If you're proud to pull up in it, everything's going to go better for you. Everything's improved by a little bit. If you're not proud to pull up in what you're pulling up, especially if it's to a networking event, a business meeting, etc., you're going to have less confidence, less energy naturally just by what you're pulling up in. That was one of the reasons why.
It says a lot about a person.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
It says a lot, especially if you open up the door inside and it's clean and it's been vacuumed and everything is, looks clean on the inside. Of course, you're gonna think the car's even nicer than it actually is. So I think it says a lot about a person how clean their car is on the outside. On the inside, it just it's a projection of yourself. It's like what you drive in. It's what you go around town and what you drive to work in. So keeping it clean, keeping it intact, mechanically, making sure it drives good. And it is. I agree. I think they're good investments for your own personal persona. Like you said, pulling up in a nice car gives you that confidence to step out with your chest high when you're going to a business meeting. Or like you said, if you're going to go on a date, you pick a girl up in a nice car. It makes you feel better about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And for your personal brand as your image online, which everything is nowadays, is marketing, personal brand. Everybody's understanding that Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all these different things are important for your personal brand and your business. You want to be able to show that online too, right? Again, it's just a projection of your success and your wealth. That's all it is. It's just a status symbol. Is that what it is? Yes. But does it matter? Does it mean something? Yes, it does. People go to your Instagram page and they see a Lamborghini. They're going to say, okay, he's doing something right. Man, let me listen to this guy. What's he got going on, etc. You don't want to show on your Instagram that you got an old beater 2005 Toyota Corolla. Nobody's coming to your Instagram page saying, "Oh, this guy's a fucking stud." It's not going to happen. Of course not. People, when I was recruiting and doing interviewing for my insurance brokerage, one of the things that I noticed happening in my interviews as I was further along in the industry and I had built up my personal brand was people were coming to the interviews quoting reels that I had made, talking about the house that, you know, the $2.5 million mansion I'm living in, the car. Oh my God, I love that car, man. That car's so sick, etc. So they're already walking in to meetings with me, interviews, etc., with this image, this persona that they've created in their mind that this person's a high level individual, somebody I should respect, somebody that I should win their favor of, etc. They gave me so much control and so much power in these meetings and in these interviews because people in their minds are always, that mystery is going to develop some kind of image or story about you that's going to make you seem bigger than life. That's the kind of impression you want to leave people with your social media pages. If your social media, if your personal brand doesn't give you that type of persona, you're lacking in that area. You want people to see that and say, who the fuck is this guy? He's always in Miami. He's in Mexico. He's in Europe. He's got this supercar. He's living in this house. You want people to look at that and be like, who is this guy? That's marketing. That's personal brand. You got like I said, you got a Nissan Altima. You know, I don't know if they're looking at you like you're fucking James Bond, right?
It's so right because a lot of guys are really good at personal branding and marketing, and those are the guys that are they project that they're very successful. Like they're good at marketing themselves, whether they're selling something, whether they even work for a company, and they make it seem like it's the best job ever when it probably is not. You know, there some guys, and women are very good at marketing themselves online. You see Instagram, TikTok, they make their life seem perfect, and that's like where a lot of people are in this day and age. They go online to get inspiration for things. Whether if you do want to get a new car, you're like, let me search up some cars, and you see, oh, Paramo has the Mercedes AMG. It looks so good. Let me go take a look at those. So that influence of having and you put it into perspective for me. I never really thought of it like that. People are seeing us online. They're seeing the clips from this, and they're seeing this video, watching. They're seeing our YouTube page, and then they get a look behind the glass door on social media, like, oh, like this is what he drives, this is where he lives. Look, he lives in paradise, and he does all this cool stuff. So it gave me a perspective there when you said that people were joining your meetings and talking about clips you were saying, because
Yes,
that makes a lot of sense. And I never really put it together like that. That what we project on the internet is ultimately what's going to come back to us.
exactly. That's why personal brand is so important, and I got so good at it. Just objectively, I got so good at it over the last couple of years because the way that you present yourself online is going to be like I was saying, the image that people have of you. So when my recruiting and my business really started blowing up was whenever my persona and my online lifestyle content was really doing well is whenever I did well, because people want to say, it's one thing to be able to teach people how to make money and be able to make money, but the only reason people are going to care in the first place if they think they want to be like you. So this is the way you want to project your personal brand online, is always showing lifestyle content. Even if you're going to restaurants, even if you're just going down to the beach, even if it's just you going on a flight, or showing that you're going from Pittsburgh to Miami, or from Arizona to just anything lifestyle related, doing things that people don't do on a typical basis is going to make people want to live like you. And that's how you draw people into your business, into your mentorship, any of that kind of stuff. You want them to want to be like you, right? Yeah, you want to show money. Yeah, you want to show pay stubs. Yeah, you want to show commissions, e-com, store sales, all that kind of stuff, right? But if they want to be like you, that's whenever they're going to want to spend money with you, because they see the life that you're living, right? Most people,
Yeah.
they don't care how you make money as long as you're making money. If you're living a lifestyle that's desirable for them, then they're just going to say, teach me whatever the fuck you're doing, because it's obviously working. So yeah, that's why the personal brand is so important, because that's your ad, that's your advertisement, that's your business. What's your lifestyle content like?
I think we've been doing very good here on YouTube as well so it's actually marked, I think, the 1 month mark for me on YouTube since we really started making a push, and we crossed the 500 subscriber mark. And I think what we're doing here on YouTube is actually resonating with people. We've had, I think, around almost 100 people join the Taylor's Code in the past month, which is crazy. So people are really resonating what these podcasts are putting out and videos that we're putting out. So that's good. That's a success in my eyes from a personal branding perspective, that that many people are joining the Taylor's Code and are interacting and are asking questions and want to learn. So that's great. And so that's why I'm happy to continue going, because we see that people are resonating and they want to learn. And we knew that. We knew that before we started. So that wasn't a surprise to me per se, but I think, at the rate that we're going so quickly, it's very promising.
Yeah, absolutely. People are hungry for this kind of content. People are hungry for other people who are making money, having success, and that can show them how to do the same thing. I knew this just from, again, the insurance industry, with how many young people were in college, coming out of college, that wanted to get into an industry like this because they could scale their income, they could make commission, they could get rich. I mean, I've never seen an industry with as many multimillionaires as the insurance industry. The insurance industry is a surefire way to become a millionaire. Will it take a little bit longer, maybe, than some other things you could try? Sure, maybe. But this is why the motto in the company that we're with right now is, it's not get rich quick, it's get rich for